So today we're going to dive into a really fascinating idea coming out of one state that's designed to tackle one of the biggest, most debated topics in American politics, corporate money and elections. It's called the Montana Plan, and you might be surprised to learn its roots go back more than 100 years. Let's get right into it.
You know, the folks who put this plan together start with this one line. And it's powerful. It's basically a heads up that what we're about to explore isn't just some brand new idea, but it's really the latest chapter in a fight that's been going on for generations.
So to really get what's happening here, you have to understand the history. We're talking about a century ago, when people in Montana were already pushing back hard against the power of big money in their state. Then, you fast forward to 2010, and the Supreme Court's Citizens United decision just completely changes the game for the whole country, right? It opened the floodgates for corporate spending in politics. And that brings us right here to today, where this plan was created as a direct response to that ruling.
All right, so first, let's really dig into this century-old fight that the plan is all about.
So what's the big idea? What's the solution they're proposing? Well, the plan's advocates have managed to boil their entire strategy down to a single, really powerful sentence.
And there you have it. That's the whole shebang in a nutshell. It's not about adding complicated new regulations. The core argument is actually much simpler. It's that since the state is the one that grants corporations their powers to begin with, it can also choose which powers to grant and which ones to hold back.
Okay, I know what you're probably thinking. Wait a minute, how is that even legal after Citizens United? That's the million-dollar question, right? Well, the next few slides are going to break down the legal foundation that the plan's supporters believe makes this whole thing possible.
So it all hinges on this one key legal concept. Corporations are creatures of state law. Think about it. They aren't natural people like you and me. They're artificial entities. State governments literally create them and give them a charter with all these special privileges that regular folks don't get, all for the purpose of doing business.
And this is really where the logic of the plan clicks into place. Proponents argue that sure, powers like limited liability make total sense for a business. But, they say, spending money in politics is not essential to a company's business purpose. So their argument is a state can simply choose not to grant that specific power.
Okay, so let's get practical. How would this actually play out, and what are the limits? This is a really important point, because there are a lot of common misconceptions about what's actually being proposed here.
The stated goal here is very, very specific. It's about stopping companies from just dipping directly into their corporate bank account, their treasury, and using it to swamp local politics. The plan's advocates say that if a company's executives or shareholders want to be politically active, there's already a way to do that. Form a political committee, which is funded by people and has to follow the same rules as everyone else.
And the plan's supporters draw a really bright line here. They stress that this has nothing to do with the rights of individual human beings. Your right to speak, your right to contribute, your right to campaign, all of that is completely untouched. And there are even specific protections for the press. The focus remains 100% on the powers granted to these artificial, state-created entities.
So how would this even be enforced? And what's the call to action for people who support it? Let's look at the mechanics behind this, well, Montana-sized power move.
What's really interesting is that the plan wouldn't require a bunch of new government agencies. Instead, it would lean on existing corporate law. Shareholders, for example, could actually sue company officers and directors, holding them personally liable for any illegal political spending. And, in really extreme cases, the state's attorney general could step in and enforce the law, potentially even revoking a corporation's charter to do business in Montana.
For those who are on board with this initiative, the organizers have laid out a pretty clear call to action. They're asking people to get involved, to volunteer, to host conversations. They want people to spread the word, to just explain the core idea to others, and for those who are able, to contribute financially to the campaign to help get it passed.
And that brings us to the final and really the most critical question. The Montana Plan is designed for Montana, but its ambition is so much bigger. It's aiming to reframe the entire national debate, to shift the focus from the rights of corporations to the power of states to define them in the first place. Whether one state can actually spark that kind of national change, well, that remains to be seen.